So Hillary Clinton's lead over Donald Trump in several national polls has widened in recent days, while a growing number of fellow Republicans have declared they will not support him. So what does Trump need to do to close the gap? Joining me now is Republican pollster Ed Goes. All right, Ed,
hey,
good to
Judge.
have you back on Justice.
I'm glad to be here.
All right. I'm not even going to go over the polls. She's ahead of them. She had a bad week. An aggressive prosecutor could indict the woman. Now, she's winning this week, and he's behind. Why?
Well, I mean, first of all, both these candidates had a 55% unfavorable rating when they got into this race. They're still hovering around that amount. Trump's a little bit higher in recent weeks. Hillary's at 53%. These numbers are baked in with the electorate. They are not going to change a great deal. They both have a very narrow bandwidth on how high they can go and how low they can go. Hillary's tends to be a little bit higher. Bandwidth is basically, if you look at all the averages of the polls this year, Hillary's never broken 50%.
Right.
She's never dropped below 43%. Trump has never broken 46%. He's never dropped below 39%. That is their bandwidth. If he is at the top of his bandwidth and she's at the bottom, he wins. What we're looking at right now is data where she's at the top, he's at the bottom, and you're looking at a much wider margin.
And there was a time, Ed, when he was beating her in the national polls. But it seemed...
He was. It was a very short period
That's
of time.
A yes.
And it was at the end of the
That's
convention.
A yes, Ed.
And the key point in that period of time was he was at the top of his bandwidth because he was getting as much support from Republicans as what Hillary was getting from Democrats.
Okay, and he's losing Republicans, or is she gaining in Democrats?
He has dropped with Republicans.
All right, that's what I want to talk about, so hang on.
Right.
We had all these honorable men and a woman who promised to support the GOP candidate, and they have not. I call him a small man, John Kasich, couldn't even show up at the Republican National Convention that benefited his state of Ohio because he was delusional enough to believe that he was going to be the candidate for president. Then you have Cruz, who's offered the opportunity to speak at the Trump convention, and he doesn't even endorse him. Carly Fiorina won't endorse him. The Bushes won't endorse him. And then we've got these letters this week, an open letter to Reince Priebus, don't fund his campaign, and the national security. What is this about?
Well, Judge, we're going to have to just agree to disagree in terms of John Kasich. He's an honorable man. I think the point is, I talk about the surveys.
No, he said he would support the GOP candidate. And he didn't.
There's a lot of talk about that, Judge, but those candidates came back at a later debate, and every one of them said that they were stepping back from that, including Donald Trump.
So you make a promise and say, I'm stepping back, and you're still honorable?
I don't want to get into that with you, Judge. I'm a pollster. When I say that he has dropped with Republicans, we're not talking about the names you're talking about. We're talking about everyday Republicans that are watching Donald Trump out there and fell away from supporting him because they didn't like what they were saying. Not because what these other people were saying, but what he was saying. And that is the key point here. He started off with a 55% unfavorable rating. It was driven by his persona. They did a great job at the debate of putting the focus on Hillary Clinton, of bringing his family into the situation and showing a different side of Donald Trump. And then he walked out of that convention and just blew all of that up.
Do you think he can come back, Ed?
Yeah, I think he can come back, but he needs to understand that what drives his negatives are his persona. If he wants to run a rough campaign, get other people to do that. Stay focused, be presidential. He seems to understand it. He said it half a dozen times over the last 6 months. I can be more presidential. There are Republicans out there that want to see it because they want to support him, but they're not seeing it.
All right, Ed Goes, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, and next up, my open involving the growing scandal between the State Department and the Clinton Foundation. That's next.